My name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to topic 2, nutrition in plants, learning outcome B. Assess the influence of environmental factors on photosynthetic efficiency of plants to optimize photosynthetic rates and crop yields. We are going to look at learning our activity C. In pairs, learners analyze data on the distribution and abundance of C3 and C4 plants at different altitude, temperatures, and oxygen concentration. Using a presentation program, each pair presents their report and explanation in a class plenary session. Let's start with distribution of C3 and C4 plants in relation to environment. Item 1. Altitudinal vegetation survey. Students conduct a field study from lowland plains to high areas. They observe that maize and sorghum dominate low altitudes, while wheat and barley dominate high altitudes. Task: identify the photosynthetic pathway used by maize and wheat. Explain the distribution of these plants along altitude gradients. Relate altitude to temperature and oxygen concentration. Identify the photosynthetic pathway used by maize and wheat. Maize and sorghum are C4 plants. Wheat and barley are C3 plants. Explain the distribution of these plants along altitude gradients. C4 plants dominate low altitude because they are adapted to high temperature and intense light. C3 plants dominate higher altitude where temperatures are lower and photorespiration is reduced. Relate altitude to temperature and oxygen concentration. Increasing altitude leads to low temperatures, lower oxygen partial pressure. Still on distribution of C3 and C4 plants in relation to environment. Item 2. Looking at temperature variation and plant abundance. Farmers note that during hot seasons, grasses grow faster than legumes. Task: explain how temperature affects photosynthesis in C3 and C4 plants. Explain why C4 plants are more abundant in hot environments. State the temperature range favoring each plant type. Explain how temperature affects photosynthesis in C3 and C4 plants. Photosynthesis is enzyme controlled. High temperature increases photorespiration in C3 plants. C4 plants minimize photorespiration. Explain why C4 plants are more abundant in hot environment. C4 plants use PEP carboxylase, which has a high affinity for carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide concentration around rubisco is high, reducing oxygen competition. State the temperature range favoring each plant type. C3 plants 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. C4 plants 30 to 45 degrees Celsius. Still under distribution of C3 and C4 plants in relation to environment, item 3. We are focusing on oxygen concentration and photorespiration. Students investigate plant growth under varying oxygen concentrations in controlled chambers. Task: explain the effect of oxygen concentration on C3 plants. Explain why C4 plants are less affected by oxygen concentration. Predict plant abundance under high oxygen concentration. Explain the effect of oxygen concentration on C3 plants. High oxygen concentration increases photorespiration in C3 plants. Rubisco binds on oxygen, reducing carbon dioxide fixation. Explain why C4 plants are less affected by oxygen concentration. C4 plant concentrate carbon dioxide in bundle sheath cells. Rubisco operates in a low oxygen environment. Predict plant abundance under high oxygen concentration. C4 plants are more abundant under high oxygen concentrations. C3 plant productivity decreases. We are still under distribution of C3 and C4 plants in relation to the environment. Item 4. We are going to look at ecological distribution in Uganda. Students compare vegetation in lowland savannas and highland regions of Uganda. Task: Identify the dominant plant types in each region. Explain how climate influences their distribution. Relate this distribution to food production. Identify the dominant plant types in each region. Lowland savannas favor C4 grasses, for example, maize, millet. Highlands favor C3 crops like Irish potatoes and wheat. Explain how climate influences their distributions. Lowlands have high temperatures and light intensity, favoring C4 plants. Highlands have cooler temperatures, favoring C3 plants. Relate this distribution to food production. Selection of appropriate crop improves yield, reduces crop failure due to environmental stress. Still under distribution of C3 and C4 plant in relation to environment, item 5. Looking at climate change and future distribution. Climate models predict rising temperatures in many regions. Task: predict the effect of global warming on the distribution of C3 and C4 plants. Explain the biological basis of this change. Suggest agricultural adaptations. Predict the effect of global warming on the distribution of C3 and C4 plants. Expansion of C4 plant into higher altitudes. Reduction in dominance of C3 plants in warmer regions. Explain the biological basis of this change. Increased temperature increases photorespiration in C3 plants. C4 plants maintain high photosynthetic efficiency. Suggest agricultural adaptations. Growing heat-tolerant crops, crop zoning, and plant breeding and biotechnology. Distribution of C3 and C4 plant in relation to environment, item 6. We have comparison task on a comparison task. Student, summarize factors affecting distribution of C3 and C4 plants. Task: Compare C3 and C4 plants in relation to altitude, temperature, and oxygen. State one ecological advantage of each group. Compare C3 and C4 plants in relation to altitude and temperature and oxygen. We have the factors. We have C3 plants and C4 plants. Altitude. C3 are at higher altitude, C4 at lower altitude. When it comes to temperature, C3 thrive in cool temperature and C4 work best in hot temperature. Oxygen effect. C3 plants, there is a high photorespiration, and in C4 plants, minimal photorespiration. Abundance. C3 are abundant in highlands and C4 abundant in lowlands. State one ecological advantage of each group. Advantage. C3 are efficient in cool, moist environment, and C4 are more efficient in hot and dry environment. Marking emphasis. Correctly identify C3 and C4 plants. Link distribution to temperature, altitude, and oxygen concentration. Explain the role of photorespiration. Apply concepts to real environment. For example, Uganda. Use correct biological terminology. Conclusion. The distribution and abundance of C3 and C4 plants are strongly influenced by altitude, temperature, and oxygen concentration. C4 plants dominate hot, low altitude environments due to reduced photorespiration, while C3 plants are more abundant in cooler, higher altitude regions where photorespiration is minimal. Thank you for participating in topic 2, nutrition in plants. The learning outcome B, assess the influence of environmental factors on photosynthetic efficiency of plants to optimize photosynthetic rates and crop yields. We have been looking at learning activity C. In pairs, learners analyze data on the distribution and abundance of C3 and C4 plants at different altitudes, temperature, and oxygen concentration. And using a presentation program, each pair present their report and explanation in a class plenary session. If this has been useful to you, please visit me at Mugabi Joshua Biology on YouTube.